6 months of marriage, and Lena still flinched when Nathaniel brushed past her in the grand halls of the mansion. 6 months of silence, of cold glances, meals eaten in cavernous dining rooms where they sat at opposite ends of the table like strangers, and loveless nights. They had not had sex once, obviously needed for an heir. She doubted herself, and doubted his intentions, because love was never part of the equation. Nathaniel's coldness toward Lena was never about indifference, it was about fear. He had grown up in a world where affection was currency and trust was a weapon. His own parents' marriage had been a battlefield of manipulation and betrayal, and Nathaniel had sworn he would never allow himself to be vulnerable in that way. Her debts had vanished. Her mother's treatments were paid for. In exchange, Lena wore the ring and bore the title of Mrs. Harrington, but her heart remained an empty vault. She remembered when she met Nathaniel. She had been working as a curator's assistant in an art gallery downtown. Her world revolved around working, keeping her sick mother's treatments paid for, and dodging the creditors who circled like vultures. Nathaniel had come in one evening, not as a billionaire in a tailored suit, but as a quiet man drawn to the art exhibit. He noticed Lena first, her laughter, her curves, the way she carried curiosity with a grace that humbled him. He returned the next day, then the next, though he never said much beyond being polite. When Lena's debts finally became too much, it wasn't the bill collectors she saw at her door, it was Nathaniel's lawyer. The proposal was outrageous, a marriage contract, 6 months minimum, an heir expected. In return, every debt would vanish, and her mother's care would be secured for life. Lena signed, telling herself it was survival. She told herself Nathaniel wanted nothing more than an heir and a body on his arm, regardless of it was a fat one like hers. But deep down, she remembered the man who had watched her laugh among the paintings, and wondered if there had always been more. Even now, sometimes she caught him staring. When he thought she wasn't looking, his eyes seemed to tell a different story, and that only deepened her confusion, and sometimes led to anger, because she didn't want his pity. She hated even now that she felt like his little project. Jealousy wasn't supposed to touch her, but it did. Whispers in the city said Nathaniel entertained his ex, a raven-haired socialite who had once nearly been his bride. Lena told herself it didn't matter, and yet, every time she saw her reflection in the polished marble floors, she wondered if he regretted marrying her curves instead of a model's silhouette. One night, as rain lashed against the windows, she overheard him on the phone. No, she must remain unharmed. Do not touch her. His voice was level, lined with a protective firmness. Her breath caught. Who was she? His ex? A mistress? Or was it her? Doubt sank its claws deep. Days passed. If possible, Nathaniel grew more distant, his jaw tight, his words clipped. Lena's chest burned with the weight of betrayal she couldn't prove. The marriage had been a deal, yes, but why did it hurt so much that he might already be breaking it? Then came the gala. Draped in a blue gown, her curves unapologetically on display, Lena walked into the ballroom by his side. Cameras flashed, and Nathaniel's arm tightened protectively around her waist. Too tight, almost desperate smile. He murmured, his breath warmed her ear. For me, the way he said, for me. There was something mixed with his voice that she'd never heard before. It was the first thing he'd said to her all week. The night blurred with music, laughter, and champagne, until the shot rang out. A scream split the room. People ducked, glasses shattered, chandeliers trembled. Lena froze, heart hammering. She didn't see the gunman. All she saw was Nathaniel's body twisting in front of hers, his arms pulling her down, his chest slamming against hers, then heat, wet and warm, spreading across his shirt. His blood, Nathaniel, she cried, her hands shaking as they pressed against the crimson liquid soaking his chest. Why would you? His eyes burned into hers, pain laced with something else, something raw and unspoken. Because you're my wife, he rasped, before his head dropped to her shoulder. The villain revealed himself in the chaos. It wasn't a faceless stranger. It was Marcus, Nathaniel's cousin, the man who had stood beside him at their wedding, the man who had toasted their union with a smile that hadn't reached his eyes. You should have died, Lena, Marcus sneered, pistol gleaming in his hand. He was supposed to watch you fall. Then the empire would be mine. Her blood iced. The threats, the shadows, the phone call. Do not touch her. They weren't proof of betrayal. They were proof of his protection. Nathaniel had known, and he had shielded her, even as she doubted him. Rage burned through her veins hotter than fear. Lena rose slowly, standing to face Marcus. Her voice, steady and sharp, cut through the room. "You want revenge. You want his empire. You'll have to take me first." Marcus laughed, low and cruel. "You think a woman like you can stand in my way? A woman like me," she said, stepping closer, "has nothing left to fear. Except losing him," she said near tears. Security stormed the room before Marcus could fire again. He was wrestled to the ground, his screams drowned by the roar of panicked guests. Lena dropped to her knees, cradling Nathaniel's face. Tears blurred her vision, but she saw his lips curve faintly. "You thought I didn't love you?" he whispered, every word a labor. "But I do love you. So much." She would find out later that the rumors that spread about him entertaining his ex were permeated by Marcus to plant doubt. The very doubt that was fading fast from her heart. A sob broke free. "And I doubted you. I'm sorry, Nathaniel. I'm so sorry," she sobbed. His hand, heavy with weakness, brushed her cheek. "No more contracts. No more deals. Just us." Hours later, in the sterile glow of the hospital, Lena sat by his bedside. Tubes and monitors surrounded him, but his chest rose and fell. He was alive, safe, and for the first time since the ink dried on their marriage contract, Lena realized the truth. Their relationship wasn't a transaction anymore. Weeks later, when Nathaniel was stronger and nearly ready to come home from the hospital, he explained to her why he was so cold to her in the beginning of their marriage. "I told myself it was safer to keep my distance," he began as he told her about his childhood, his ex, Marcus' past issues with his family, and his parents' troubled marriage. "I could give you everything you needed, comfort, security, and the best care for your mother, and neither of us could be hurt. I would be cordial in public, distant in private. I thought you were becoming ashamed of being married to a fat black woman," she said, frankly. He looked at her the same way he did when he thought she wasn't looking. Now she knew what this look was: quiet, strong desire. "The way your hips move," he said, slowly taking in her body, his beautiful eyes heavy with need, "will always have me wanting you, needing you." She looked amazed, watching his eyes undress her for the first time so she could see. "You're remarkable, inside and out. The more I watched you, the way you cared for your mother with fierce devotion, the way your presence filled the empty halls of our home with warmth, the harder it became to maintain the facade. My silence wasn't rejection, it was restraint. I loved you long before I dared to admit it, and the distance I created was my only shield." She looked at him with all the love she had for him, elated that he felt the same way. She was the wife of a man who had taken a bullet for her. She would never forget it. "You saved my life, Nathaniel. I loved you before you did that, but now," he placed a finger over her lips and replaced it with his own. This kiss was intentional, passionate. He wanted more. He wanted her desperately, right there in the hospital bed. Pulling at her clothes, it took all of her willpower to stop him because he needed his strength. Firmly pulling away from him, she helped to calm them both back down, and glad she did, because a nurse entered shortly after, realizing his heart rate had soared astronomically. Lena and Nathaniel's relationship continued to blossom into something wonderful neither had ever dreamed possible. Marcus didn't escape justice. His attempt on Lena's life had been splashed across every headline, and the courts wasted no time stripping him of every claim to the Harrington fortune. Nathaniel had watched from a hospital wheelchair as his cousin was led away in chains, with the empire he coveted forever out of reach. Months later, Nathaniel was fully healed. Lena stood in the nursery of their home. Sunlight poured through the windows. Nathaniel stepped in quietly, wrapping his arms around her from behind. "My beautiful Lena, losing you would have hurt more than 1,000 bullets," he whispered against her neck. She turned to face him so he could see her eyes. "I love you, Nathaniel. You are going to make a wonderful father," she said, cupping his face, remembering what he told her about his parents. The kiss they shared was passionate and legendary, a true testament to how deep and rich their devotion to each other was. Coldness had been his armor, and doubt had been her wall. Love had been their undoing, and it was definitely worth fighting for. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you never miss the next tale. Your support means everything and helps bring more stories to life. Until next time.